So, Ross Feingold, if I could come to you on how would we know if China is really preparing to invade Taiwan and how they're going to go about it?
The population of Taiwan has to assume that this invasion could occur at any time, if for no other reason that China has not renounced the use of force against Taiwan. So they have to prepare accordingly. But you bring up an interesting point, which is how different government officials, whether in Taiwan or the United States, commentators, military officials, they cite different potential dates when this might happen, whether it's 2 years from now, 3 years, 5 years, sometime before 2049, which would be the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the People's Republic of China. We don't really know the date, but again, the key point for the people and the government of Taiwan is that it has to prepare itself accordingly.
All right, Captain Alok Bansal, if I could come to you, because going by China's expansionist policy and also in your experience of how India has been dealing with China, how do you decode China's war strategy basis the statements that have been made on Taiwan until now?
See, China is very categorical that it's actually now threatening, especially President Tsai's government, which is actually pursuing an independent agenda. So it's actually these actions are to browbeat Taiwan into submission. And that is what is being attempted by all these actions that are taking place. I personally do not feel that now China would risk an invasion of Taiwan after what's happening to Russia and Ukraine. So I think Chinese have been observing Russian conflict with Ukraine with very keenly, and having seen the results, I think they won't go for a military aggression, but they definitely want to browbeat Taiwan into submission by this sort of actions. But then there are actions which could be short of full-scale war, because there are islands of Taiwan which are just off the Chinese coast, like Cayman Islands, etc., which could be attacked. So all such provocations could take place short of probably full-scale invasion of Taiwan, because full-scale invasion of Taiwan will lead to huge losses for China, because Taiwanese armed forces are fairly strong and could also bring the United States into action. So those are the issues that come into being, but China will keep indulging in such provocative actions where their aircraft will keep crossing into Taiwanese airspace, their ships will pass close to Taiwan. All these things will happen, and we are seeing such things happening even now.
Okay, Ina Tangan, if I can come to you on this, because reports suggest that Trump's national security has advised, Trump's national security advisor has warned that China could well attack Taiwan within the next 2 years. So what exactly are you expecting from the Biden-Xi meeting?
Well, I don't know that Trump's national security advisor X would have a lot of credibility at this time, as the elections have shown, and various other things in terms of his administration. But I mean, there's this issue. I mean, I don't understand why people think that it's necessary for the mainland to use force on Taiwan. 42% of Taiwan's economy is directly related to the mainland or Hong Kong, which is part of China. So if they really want to put pressure on Taiwan, they could easily do it by just simply cutting it off economically, telling Taiwanese workers to go back to Taiwan and saying basically everything would be forfeit. So that hasn't happened. And there's this idea that there's going to be a jump to warfare. That only happens if the U.S. and Taiwan try to say that it's an independent country. That would be against China's constitution, and I definitely believe that they would act.
All right. Ross Feingold, if this actually happens and China goes on to wage war against Taiwan, in that sense, go full throttle, what do you think is going to be the geopolitical impact by and large on Asia, and who will be most impacted?
That's also a great question, because the answer is something that's somewhat in flux. So, for example, not only is the United States taking action to increase its defense resources in the Western Pacific, but Japan, under recent and current prime ministers, have committed to improving their defense posture as well. Australia is doing the same thing, most notably with the AUKUS agreement. On the other hand, there's recent polling in different countries around the world shows, especially after the war in Ukraine, that there's a willingness to take economic action against China should there be a war, such as through sanctions, and to provide aid to Taiwan, very similar to the model for Ukraine, but not necessarily for other countries to send personnel, combat personnel, to become involved in a war between China and Taiwan. So that, again, it's very much in flux. And then another interesting issue, especially these few days, is the response from the ASEAN countries. And we see that up to now, they generally don't want to take a side. They're not making statements as clear about this issue as, for example, the United States or Japan often do when it comes to Taiwan. So for ASEAN, it seems that they still prioritize their economic relationship with China over any political disputes with China.